Hey, first time ever on YouTube Live with all zero of my subscribers. Hey, my name's Jimmy Clegg. I am new to YouTube Live, but I got a new YouTube channel. We have a Facebook group called KETO AF and Fasting that's been going a couple of years, and I decided to jump on YouTube and use this more as a vlog type of format. And I did a lot of reading on it, and pretty much I think to make these things successful, you have to pretty much become an actor, and you have to put on a show and be real exciting and all of that. And I read your first post should be your brick of a post. Anyway, I'm not going to do all that. I'm just going to vlog. I'm just going to talk. And if it's interesting, it's interesting. If it's not, it's not. I really don't care. But our goal is to help people out, help people help themselves out, and through a grassroots effort, spread the news of the ketogenic diet and fasting and a lifestyle that is suppressed by mainstream media, by mainstream medicine, by pharmaceutical companies, by sugar industry. So it has to be done through us. It has to be done through a grassroots effort, and that's what we're doing. A little backstory on me: I am fat. I'm still 295 pounds. I started primal eating, Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint. Popped up on Facebook today, I think January 2013. I saw I had posted in a memory on Facebook today. I had posted in August of 2013 to announce that I'd lost 100 pounds. And I look back on that, and that seems like yesterday, but and I was like, holy crap, I lost 100 pounds between January and August. But when you were 500 pounds starting out, that's an accomplishment, but it can easily be done. I bet I lost 30 or 40 pounds in fluid alone. But anyway, I'm still a work in progress. Primal did me well. I still believe in primal eating. I still believe in just eating real food. But I read Dr. Jason Fung's book, The Obesity Code, about the time that I had gotten down to about 350. So I'd lost about 150 pounds. Well, and we'll go into that later, but probably around 130 to 150 pounds. And I stalled. And I would lose a little and gain a little, and lose a little and gain a little, and then pretty much staying in the same area for a couple of months. And I said, there's got to be something more to this. I really believed in primal. I'd had great success, but I read the obesity code, and Dr. Fung talked about body set weight and insulin resistance, and that's the first time that insulin resistance had popped in, and so I did some digging into the ketogenic diet, and I stumbled across Jimmy Moore and his podcast. And then I stumbled a year or so later across two keto dudes they started up, and then found more and more and started following Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, Stephen Finney, Jeff Volek, Tim Noakes, who's a hero of mine, Eric Westman, all of these guys. Started following them and reading up on them, and I said, this is what I got to do. This is the answer. So I went ketogenic. I went a sloppy, dirty ketogenic at first, eating a lot of Spam and Vienna sausages and junk like that. And honestly, I was probably, out of ignorance, I was probably doing Atkins more or less. Didn't know anything about macros or anything like that, but it worked. And I got down below 300 pounds for the first time since I was probably 25. I'm 46 now, so this was around the age of 40. So it had been 15 years since I've been below, probably 16 or 17 years since I've been below 300 pounds. And I'm still dealing with issues, learning how changing exercise routines, how stress, how cortisol from the stress. Exercise, sleep deprivation. I'm learning now as I try to get the last 50 or 60 pounds off. I'm learning now how all of that is really important. So we will talk on my vlogs in the future. I'm a firm believer that there's 4 pillars of health. Of course, diet is number one. It's probably 75% of the formula. But then when you get closer to your goal, you really have to take into account sleep is probably number two, in my opinion. Then stress management or exercise, and then stress management. And if any of those are out of whack, it can derail you from your goals. So we'll talk about that in the future. But what I wanted to talk about today, besides the intro, is Keto AF. There has been, like I said, Keto AF and fasting is a Facebook group that we have that's been going a couple of years. We went from like 45 members a year ago to close to 4,000 now, and we really appreciate all of our members because the recipes, the support, everything is amazing in that group. So we're proud of the group and we're proud of our community, what we're building, and I really love to see that we're spreading out to other countries, that we're spreading out to not just the local. We're located in East Texas. We're spreading out all over the United States. We're spreading out. I think we've got members in 10 or 12 different countries now, and I love every bit of that. But the big buzz lately is people have been stressing the hell out about macros. Like, I gotta hit my macro. You know, one lady, there's actually a bunch of people, ladies and men, but one person will say, I gotta have my protein shake. Oh no, my protein shake has too many carbs and blah, 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 and macros, 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 and that's all I hear lately is macros. Macros are important. First of all, I'm a firm believer. If you join Keto AF and fasting, go to the pinned post at the top of the page, and the pinned post has a link to a Word file, and on that Word file is a book called Journey to the Center of the Girth. That's what our group used to be called a couple of years ago, but Journey to the Center of the Girth. And it's a short book that I wrote, and my plan in the book was to put it totally in layman's terms. Like, I'm no scientist, but I'm starting to consider myself a citizen scientist, but I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degree in science or engineering or anything like that. I just believe in this, and I've done, over 1,000 hours of research, and I continue to do research. And so go read my book. It's totally put in layman's terms, and I want feedback because I hadn't completely finished it, but I want to know from you guys what's missing and what I can do to make it better. But anyway, I've been listening and reading a lot of Dr. Benjamin Bickman lately. The first time I heard of him is he spoke at Low Carb Breckenridge last year, I believe, and I watched the recording of his speech, and I was just blown away. And then I kind of discounted him because he's a big protein advocate. And right now there's a huge protein versus fat fight going on in the ketogenic community. And a lot of researchers and people believe that protein is super crucial, that it's the most satiating, that it needs to lead the charge. And the traditional ketogenic thinking is that that's fat. And so I've always been in the traditional category, but what I'm going to suggest today from Dr. Benjamin Bickman, changing my mind, is going to sound like I'm leaning towards protein, but hear me out. First thing, I want this to simplify macros for everybody that listens. Everybody that stresses over macros. Number one, you don't have to hit your macros every single day. Look at it over a week or a month average, and if you're anywhere near your macros, you're 70% fat, you're 25% protein, you're 5% carbohydrate, or 65, 35, whatever you want to break it down. If you're anywhere near that, you're cool. Stressing over a day-to-day macro breakdown is just it's counterproductive. So listening to Dr. Bickman, he says it should be 3 steps. Number one, the most crucial thing is you've got to get those carbs down. I'm a big believer lately in 30 total carbs per day. or you can do the more traditional 20 net carbs. And we'll talk about that at a later day. But I do 30 total carbs per day. And so Dr. Bickman, he agrees. Number one, you have to do that. Number two, and I'm going to say I agree with him, figure out your protein threshold. So protein needs to be the second most important thing. So here's where you have to be honest with yourself. You got to look at your age, your activity level, your metabolic resistance that's been done over the years. And you got to realistically evaluate yourself. And I'm not knocking anybody, but if currently you're a couch potato, you don't do any exercise, you don't get up and around, your protein threshold is going to be low. I would, a guy, say a 400-pound guy that just doesn't have the ability right now to do a lot of exercise and doesn't do much, you're probably only going to need, I'm going to throw a number out, like 75 grams of protein a day. Okay? However, if you are a 25-year-old athlete and you work out 6 days a week intensely, you're probably going to need the recommended 1.6 grams of protein or more per kilogram of body weight. So somebody like me, 290, that would be, God, I don't even know what that would be. It would be like 300 grams of protein a day. So that's where you have to honestly evaluate yourself. If you're 60 and you've been obese for 40 years, for 4 decades, you've got a lot of metabolic damage that you've done. You know that you're extremely insulin resistant. So high amounts of protein can actually cause an insulin spike. So, you may want to set your protein threshold a little lower. If you're 30 years old and you've been obese for 5 years, but you have lost weight, so you still don't have a lot of metabolic damage done, you're still pretty young, you can set your threshold a little higher. And I can't tell you what your threshold is. It's trial and error. It's person to person. But the first thing is to be honest with yourself. If you fill out a little questionnaire and it says, are you not active, moderately active, active, very active, if you say, I think I'm very active, that's athletes. Athletes that compete and train all the time are very active. Chances are, if you think you're active, you're moderately active or you're kind of active. So be honest with yourself. You're not hurting anybody but yourself if you let your ego get in the way of your self-evaluation. But so say me. Currently, I am lifting weights 2 to 3 days a week, and I'm doing cardio now 2 to 3 days a week. So I would put myself in the active category. But I would also figure in that I was obese from age 20 to age 40. So I have 2 decades of obesity and metabolic damage that I did. So, if I were 46 years old and active and hadn't been obese, I might go for the 1.6 gram per kilogram of body weight. But I know I've done metabolic damage. I know I have insulin resistance. So I'm going to go, and Dr. Bickman suggested it, I'm going to take, instead of my body weight, my actual body weight, I'm going to take my goal. Or he actually said your ideal body weight. I'm going to take my goal. My goal is 240 pounds. I'm 6'5", 240. Now, the ideal weight that they tell you on the little charts is like 195. I mean, there's no way I'm going to be 195 ever, I don't think. So I'm going to say my goal of 240, and I'm going to do 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight based on my goal. So that's going to put me around the 140, 150 a day range. And that's an honest assessment, and I need to look at that. If I get lazy and I go a month and I'm not working out anymore, I need to lower that protein. So here's the kicker. Fat has 9 calories per gram. Protein and carbohydrates have 4. If you divide 4 by 9, you get 0.69. So fat is 69% more dense than protein. So here's what makes your macros easy. Once you figure your protein threshold, just match that with fat. So if you say, I'm going to eat 100 grams of protein a day, and we already know we're staying 20 net or 30 gross carbs. If you say, I'm going to eat 100 grams of protein a day, then I'm going to eat 100 grams of fat a day. That's simple. 1-to-1 ratio, protein to fat. And keep in mind that fat is 69% more calorie dense than protein and carbohydrates. So that's it. That makes macros super easy. 1-to-1 ratio. Honestly figure your protein threshold and then match it with fat and then stay within your carbohydrate threshold that we've already established. And you're going to be right there on your macros. You're going to be 5% carbohydrates. And notice how this also controls your calories. So if you're super active and you set your protein ratio at 150, 150 times 4 is 600. So that'd be 600 calories of protein. Fat, 70% more. So that would be 1,300 calories, 1,400 calories of fat, plus another 80 calories of carbohydrates. So, you're looking at over 2,000 calories a day. So your calories, your fat, and your carbohydrates, well, not your carbohydrates, your calories and your fat are all based off of that protein threshold that you set. And there you go. Be honest with yourself. Anyway, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Give me some feedback on how terrible I was.